Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to dive into a pretty incredible story about transforming our deepest, most frustrating obstacles into unshakable inner strength. If you've ever felt completely stuck, blocked by something you just can't seem to move, this story is absolutely going to change the way you look at your challenges forever.
Okay, let's set the scene. Picture yourself in the middle of a burning desert. You've got golden sand stretching out as far as the eye can see, and the sun is just pouring down this intense, relentless heat. Now imagine you're completely trapped in this hostile environment. What do you do when your instinct is to move forward, to grow, to escape, but your path is entirely blocked?
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the weight of the stone. To really get this, we have to look at the intense contrast at play here. Inside, our tiny date seed has this desperate spark of life. It wants to grow. It wants to see the sky and feel the warm sunlight. But its external reality, well, it's incredibly harsh. It's buried under that baking desert heat, and directly on top of it rests a massive, immovable stone just pressing it down.
And this brings up that universally relatable feeling of just utter despair. The seed gathers all its strength, pushes upward with everything it has, and the stone? It doesn't budge a single inch. It pushes again. Nothing. The seed literally begins to cry, feeling completely cursed by its fate. I mean, we've all been there, right? Pushing against an obstacle with all our might only to remain completely, hopelessly stuck.
Moving on to Section 2, A Whisper in the Wind.
Now pay close attention here, because this is the absolute pivot point of everything we're talking about today. Just when the seed is ready to give up, a gentle wind passes through and whispers a simple message. Do not complain. Look downward. At first, the seed is totally confused. Look downward? What could possibly be down there but more darkness and dirt?
But then, the realization hits. Instead of wasting all its precious energy complaining and banging its head against an immovable object, the seed completely changes direction. It realizes, hey, if the path above is firmly closed, maybe, just maybe, there's a path below.
Let's look at Section 3, The Hidden Journey Downward.
Now, changing direction didn't mean things suddenly got easy. Far from it. Sending its roots deeper into that dry, packed soil was grueling. The seed had to navigate rock-hard earth and fight through sand that seemed specifically designed to stop it. Mentally, it battled massive exhaustion and doubt, constantly wondering, am I doing all this for nothing? Every single time that doubt crept in, it had to actively remember the wind's advice. Do not complain, look downward, and just keep pushing.
We are not talking about a quick weekend fix here. Think about the passage of time, days blending into months, and eventually years of grueling, patient effort. Developing true foundational strength takes an incredibly long time. It requires immense, quiet patience in the dark.
I absolutely love this detail because it reminds us that the hardest, most important work we ever do on ourselves is almost entirely invisible to the outside world. Anyone just walking through that desert would just see a boring, lifeless stone. They had zero idea that directly underneath it, a tiny seed was silently executing an extraordinary journey of resilience.
Bringing us to Section 4, Surviving the Sandstorm.
So let's break down how this invisible effort actually turns into a massive breakthrough. First, after years of digging, those roots finally hit deep, hidden underground water. The second that happens, a literal surge of strength awakens inside the seed. It isn't just relying on blind hope anymore, it has real, undeniable power. Third, with its roots spread deep and wide, it finally pushes upward again. And fourth, it patiently squeezes its way through a tiny space right at the edge of that unmoving stone.
When it finally breaks the surface, it doesn't emerge as some flimsy, weak little sprout. No way. It emerges with a thick, iron-like stem. By the time its branches reach toward the sky, the plant has an unshakable foundation, all because of how tightly its years in the making roots grip the earth. Over time, it grows into this massive, towering date palm tree.
And then, the ultimate test arrives. A brutal sandstorm rips through the desert. The sky fills with blinding dust, and the wind blows so aggressively that small plants and grass are just ripped up and tossed away like tiny pieces of straw. So many plants are completely destroyed because their roots were shallow. But our tall date palm tree? It bends in the wind for sure, but it does not break. Its roots are simply too deep to be shaken.
So looking at this massive tree surviving the absolute worst nature can throw at it, it's time to ask the most important question of this entire explainer.
Who, or what, actually forced this seed to grow such incredibly deep roots in the first place?
The answer? It's kind of mind-blowing. It was the stone. The exact same heavy stone that the seed once cried over, the obstacle it firmly believed was the biggest problem in its life, was actually the secret architect of its ultimate survival. Think about it. If the stone hadn't been there, the seed would have grown shallow roots and been destroyed by the storm.
Which brings us to our final takeaway in Section 5, your struggle is your power.
In our own lives, we almost always look at things through a totally flawed lens. We complain about our problems, our failures, our obstacles, convinced that they're unfairly blocking our path. But the true reality is entirely different. A blocked path above is just life's brilliant way of pushing us to grow downward. It forces us to grow deeper into patience, deeper into wisdom, and deeper into faith. So this really changes our definition of what it means to be unshakable. Unshakable people aren't those who just magically avoid obstacles. They're simply the people who refuse to give up during hard times. Instead, they use that blocked path to silently strengthen their inner roots until they reach a point where absolutely no storm in the world can bring them down.
So, as we wrap up, I want to leave you with something to really chew on. What is the heavy stone in your life right now? The next time a massive obstacle appears and presses down on you, I want you to remember the story of the date seed. Do not complain. Look downward and ask yourself, how might this very stone be exactly what you need to survive the storms that lie ahead? Thanks for exploring this with me on today's Explainer, and keep growing those roots.